This week on Retronauts, you're about to enter the no spin zone. Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey here for Retronauts Pocket, episode 5, and today's episode is all about, I guess we're going to call it the media versus Nintendo Mania. That's what I'm calling it for now anyways, until we think of a better name.
So this is about the Wii U?
Oh, I don't think the media really noticed the Wii U's out. Did it?
All it's saying is bad things.
Okay. Jeremy, I need you a little closer, please.
Bad things.
Bad things are happening. So, who is here with me today? I am Bob Mackey, of course. Who is to my left?
Henry Gilbert.
Nice. Who else we got here?
Ray Barnholt.
Didn't forget about Ray this time.
No.
And Jeremy Parrish previously accounted for.
Yes, he was speaking before. So what I'm doing for this episode is, my last Pocket episode was about Captain N. And I did that because, I guess, for the time being at least, I want to focus on things outside of gaming, sort of like reactions to games or products based on games. And this one, we're going to be talking about a few clips I got, and I'm going to be editing that audio into this podcast, so don't worry. But I do want you to go onto our blog at retronauts.com and watch these clips, or you can just look them up yourselves. They're pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
So I dug up 3 clips, one with the help of Chris Antista from Laser Time. So the first one is from Inside Edition, but first I did want to ask, we all lived through Nintendo Mania, and by that I mean sort of like the late 80s. I'm taking we were all Nintendo kids for the most part. I'm not sure about you, Henry. Were you a Nintendo kid?
Totally.
Okay.
I ate
Awesome.
the cereal. I
Did you see his
wore
shirt?
the pajamas.
What's that?
Did you see his shirt?
Oh, I didn't see his shirt. Okay, are those all? Okay, those are all of Mario's costumes on Henry's shirt. So yes, like we were all Nintendo kids. Maybe you could probably tell based on what we make our episodes about, anyways. But how did Nintendo Mania affect you as a kid? Let's start with Ray. Where were you in Nintendo Mania? Were you that kid on Nintendo Power with your feet up in the room with a DuckTales poster?
No, that was a Capcom poster.
Oh, okay.
I started when I was like 5, so that was 88. So, I mean, as a 5-year-old, I wasn't totally in tune with all the media hoopla or whatnot. I was just glommed on because of a commercial that I saw that had RC Pro-Am.
And your parents were supportive of your Nintendo addiction?
Yes.
Okay.
Up even now.
Me too. As for me, like I got my first NES in 1988 because my parents got divorced and material possessions help kids cope with things. So I got a free
Yeah.
Nintendo for my parents getting divorced, which is awesome.
Hooray.
And and my parents, like, Nintendo basically, my sister didn't care about it, so it was something that would keep me occupied. And I had a single working mom, and that's really what she was concerned with, and it kept me off the streets. So that's how my mom reacted to Nintendo Mania. Jeremy, where were you in Nintendo Mania?
I was older than you guys.
You were smoking cigarettes.
Junior high. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that Nintendo Mania, as in all the excitement outside
Like,
of
were
the
you-
systems themselves affected me.
Were you too old for Nintendo Power? Or
No,
were
I mean,
you reading Nintendo Power?
sent me a copy of Nintendo Power, and I was like, all right, there's video game news. I need this.
Yeah.
So I subscribed, but that's really about as far as it went. Mostly I was just into the games. I had a bunch of friends who owned NESs, and their parents were much more generous than... well, I don't want to say my parents were generous. Their parents
They're listening.
could afford to bury them beneath games, whereas my parents were like, if you want video games, that's fine, but
You should have got
you
to know...
buy your own console, and you buy your own games, or get them as a gift. And so, that's... I had a small collection, but my friends and I would swap games back and forth, and I spent a lot of time playing video games. I'd go do summer, cheap rentals of video games in the summers. So I played a lot of the games, but, like the ancillary stuff, the television shows, the merchandise, I was never into that. It was pretty much just the video games.
Yeah.
Henry,
Well, yeah.
how deep were you in Nintendo Mania?
I was really deep. I think I had seen like a Coleco or something as a kid before, but the first video game real memory I have was like my next door neighbor had Super Mario Brothers, and it just like drove me crazy. I demanded it from my parents, and I got it on my birthday, and and it just kind of grew from there. Like I definitely watched Super Mario Brothers Super Show all the time, and
Right.
I ate the cereal even though it sucked.
That cereal did suck. I can
And
still
two
taste
cereals.
it. Yeah. Oh, sorry, the cereals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a system.
Yeah.
And I also read the Valiant comic books about the Mario, the
Yeah.
Nintendo comic system, and like just to go to Sears to see the world of Nintendo, like it was just so.
At my
It's so
Sears,
magical.
the world of Nintendo was like buried in the grandmother blouse section, so
Yeah.
it was in a weird place.
It would trick you, but
Yeah.
then once you make it past the grandma clothes, like
Grandma
You
clothes.
bastards! I never saw World of Nintendo in
Oh,
person.
if it makes you feel any better, it was basically just like a kiosk with games behind it, maybe one demo station.
I guess they weren't all as glamorous as the photos in Nintendo Power.
yeah, I've just been trying my whole life. I think I've been trying to slowly unbrainwash myself as a Nintendo fanboy.
Yeah, I think we're all, I guess, I wouldn't say fanboys, but we sort of, the way we grew up, it was sort of like a Nintendo-centric life for a lot of us. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're mentioning our experiences. All of these clips that I dug up, these segments I dug up, are reactions to Nintendo Mania. And they're basically for adults, explaining to adults, like, what is this Nintendo garbage your kids won't shut up about? The second one is a lot more fun because John Stossel's an immense crank and awful person. But I do like...
I don't know, fun crank.
Yeah, he's we'll get around to John Stossel in a minute, and his marvelous mustache. It's a great mustache, by the way.
Yeah,
That's one thing I can say about
Okay.
him. So our first clip is from Inside Edition. This was from 1988, and like I said, go online to our blog at retronauts.com, and you can watch it there. Just look it up on YouTube. I recommend you check it out before you listen to us talk about it. But this clip is introduced by our buddy Bill O'Reilly.
Nintendo is much more than that. Nintendo is, well, almost the most fun a kid can have. Here's Joel Loy.
Because I guess he started on Inside Edition, or that was one of his many gigs, and it's always fun to watch Bill O'Reilly with hair trying to look genial when you can just tell he's suppressing all the rage that he could possibly muster.
Yes.
But basically, this clip is what is Nintendo? We're going to explain it to you. But there's a lot of things I notice about these clips, and one of them is always, even with the clip that we're going to talk about later, Nintendo is always a toy. That's all they refer to it as.
Right.
And in some of these stories, they talk about it as, they know it's a video game, and they mention other video games do exist, but this is just a toy, a fad, and you're going to have to put up with it until it goes away, is the implicit message, at least to me. Like, you'll have to deal with this, and we're going to help you, sort of, in our own way.
Yeah.
So just like the Wii.
Yeah, actually. Was that how coverage was for the Wii?
No, but I mean, that was a lot of the conversations that happened
Yeah.
around the Wii. People were like, oh, this is just a fad. It's just a stupid toy.
Okay, yeah,
People are
so-
going to get sick of motion controls any day now.
So
It can't
people-
possibly go past this first Christmas.
So these are people that should have known better, but I guess it was kind of unpredictable, though, you know?
Yeah, there were definitely parallels being drawn with like Cabbage Patch Kids in those.
That's right. I think they even mentioned them like a couple of years ago. It was Couch Patch Kids, now it's Nintendo, and... sorry, Ray,
But I
go
mean,
ahead.
that was
The toy market was Nintendo's foundation for
Right.
basically trying to rebuild the game industry.
That's right. I mean,
that was their hook. They were like, we're not video games.
Yeah.
We're a control deck. And
Look
here
at
are
this
game
robot.
packs.
Yeah. It's like, this is not
Your
a video
friend
game.
will put gyroids on the.
That's no friend.
O's.
That's an enemy. But listen to this. I think with these two first clips we're going to talk about, I believe Nintendo gave these people access, and it's clear in the second one at least. No, this one too, that Nintendo did work with these people, and I believe their messaging is clear in these segments because. Number one, Nintendo is only for kids, right? They don't talk about parents also enjoying it too, or even families. It's just like, no, this is a thing that only kids are going to like.
That would never happen.
And also, it's just like, these things come from Japan. Like, they just show up. There's no interest at all in the artistry, the people making the games. And in fact, I think the Japanese thing, it's necessary because that's a fact, but they want to get away from Japan as soon as possible. Just like, these things come from Japan, and then we sell them. But the selling and the marketing is what's more interesting for these segments.
Yeah, I mean, from Nintendo's perspective, like the Japaneseness of it was kind of toxic given the state of the nation at the time. The U.S. was very opposed to Japan in the 80s. Not opposed, terrified of Japan because of Japan's booming economy.
Yeah.
So then when you tell people like, well, the most successful toy is a Japanese import, like that'll make them even more scared. But though, like, you can't get around Nintendo is the name. That's a foreign name, like that. But,
yeah, like it's baked into the product, like a Japanese expression is baked into the product. So you kind of have to be like, that's what this means. Let's move on. here are some plush toys of Mario.
And also this may be a Japanese company, but here's a bunch of white people talking about it.
Yeah. You know white people. You can
Look,
trust
this
them.
guy's a bow tie.
Yeah.
He's gentle.
We found the whitest guy ever to be our rep.
He's the new Ron Howard.
One of the things, one of the things I thought about this interview that was interesting was, and I'll put sound clips in this, by the way, just so you guys aren't lost. The interviewer actually poses an interesting question to the Nintendo rep. I believe it was the president at the time. He's like, okay, they're the Mario brothers, so does that mean they're Mario and Luigi Mario? And the guy's just like, of course not. That's ridiculous. And then it's like, that became canon with the Mario Brothers movie 5 years later.
I believe in that clip, he actually said, some questions just don't have answers.
Oh, yeah.
We found Nintendo America headquarters near Seattle. In true Inside Edition fashion, we had some tough questions we wanted answered.
Now we have Mario and Luigi.
His brother.
They're the Mario brothers.
That's right.
So are their names Mario and Luigi Mario?
No, it's just Mario and Luigi. There are no last names.
But why are they the Mario brothers?
Some questions just have no answers.
Side note, by the way, that was Bill White, who we mentioned last episode of Retronauts, talking about the violence stuff.
Oh.
He was on that Senate panel as a Sega employee.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He turned his back on Nintendo.
Yeah.
With Sega.
And Howard Lincoln dinged him for that.
It was weird not to see Howard Lincoln in any of those. I thought he was high up enough there.
He was high up enough that he probably had better things to do.
Yeah, that's probably
You
it.
didn't see Hiroshi Yamauchi in there either.
No.
Or Arakawa.
And it was all white faces, but one thing that I find that goes hand in hand with these video game segments is they act as if player hotlines were a necessity. It just like that is like the main, I guess one of the through lines of this is just like these games are your kids can't even figure them out. You got to call these numbers. They're clear, and like they're showing game counselors and like these people play video games for a living as if it's glamorous. But I'm sure it was a shit job. It had to be. Maybe your picture's in Nintendo Power. It's you with an awful mullet and some Dayglow t-shirt, but I don't understand how that could possibly be glamorous. It feels like glorified Q&A. But, I mean, again, these people are operating from a place of ignorance.
I don't know. Ray, you worked at My Cheats. What was it like?
Well, we didn't get calls, thank God.
You should have had a hotline, really.
No, God, no.
I thought Mike Nelson got a couple of phone calls. Did he not? Maybe not.
We always got weird emails.
Yeah,
for sure.
From jail, right?
Right. I have your picture in my cell.
No, you know what? I think even years later, after we had all left the site, we would still get emails from like parents who'd said, if my kid got through Zelda because of the guy that Mike and Ray wrote. So thanks for that. So, yeah, that's kind of stuff leaves a lasting impression. But
did you guys ever actually use the counselor hotline back in the day?
Once.
I was a lonely child, and I called the toll-free hotline to talk to counselors, but there was no charge. You could just talk and ask about products and stuff like that because, I mean, there was no internet, so that was like a service Nintendo was providing. So
did you have like a John Locke thing going on, calling up the game counselor to be your girlfriend?
No, it was more like I just need someone to talk to, and game counselors will humor me. They're surprisingly polite for a little kid that would just be like, "What's the next player's guide coming out?" And then they would let me know.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was my life.
I feel I'd be good at that job if it still existed.
Yeah.
Considering like that old Sonic episode of Retronauts, that live call-in one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were all very kind.
That served the same purpose, I think. Bored children.
It destroyed me, though. I couldn't do that for a living.
Yeah.
I had to stop the show after
I made it
that.
through okay.
Those, the people in those clips had wonderful '80s hair, like just giant. That's what people were dressing like in Seattle back in '89.
It's a good like time capsule. And then I guess we can wrap up our discussion of this segment by Howard Phillips ends. They barely talk to him, but they do, and he ends with this weird like philosophy, like Mario and Luigi are all of us, or something like that. It's just like we are Mario
inside of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right.
That's quite a leap to make, no pun intended. But
I did like the guy. He revealed like they got slightly deep with Mario's strategy in there. Just he was like, well,
that's right. Yeah,
he had the Koopa shell trick. He revealed it to the world, which I thought was pretty neat. I would have blown my mind as a kid if I'd watched.
I mean, like I still can't pull that trick off, but it was interesting to see that one of the major Mario tricks, one of the three top well-known Mario tricks, was part of that show. As displayed by a game counselor with radical hair.
Okay, to get the magical sword, what you need is 12 heart containers.
Have you ever been to the mansion that has the eyeball in it?
These people play video games for a living. Consider that the Super Mario Brothers game has 8 worlds and 32 levels. kids and grown-ups can get fanatical about finding out the best way to get from point A to point B. It takes countless hours, weeks, and even months for some to get to the end of the game using trial and error and secret passages that aren't always detailed in the instruction books. No wonder the game borders on obsession for kids and adults. Sooner or later, you're going to need some tips from the pros. For instance, two of the baddest of the bad guys are the Hammer Brothers, but you can outwit them.
When you're in level 3-1, there's going to be a spot about halfway through where you're going to run into the Hammer Brothers. Head to the right a little bit. There's going to be 2 sets of 3 bricks right on top of each other. Hit the brick on the right-hand side, and a beanstalk will appear. You'll end up in the sky world, and you can collect a whole ton of coins.
And one they brought back for like the new Super Mario Brothers games, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I bought a toy of that in Japan. It was
yeah.
the sound and you keep making him jump on it, and eventually it starts the 1-up sound.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's awesome. I need to check that out. So Bill O'Reilly wraps it up. And he's like, I could barely figure out Lincoln Logs. And true story, he now writes or ghostwrites or puts his name on books about presidents being assassinated. He has a book called Killing Lincoln and Killing...
With a log.
With a log, maybe. So he struggled with Lincoln Logs, but he enjoys writing books about Lincoln being murdered. More than one.
Even 25 years ago, he's a total fuddy-duddy.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't get this stuff. What is it?
Right.
Come on. What's with kids today? Like...
And
why do they keep standing on my lawn?
Speaking of not getting stuff, this next segment would be as if Bill O'Reilly did the investigation himself, because I love this Nuts for Nintendo 2020 segment, because the entire thing is John Stossel just getting increasingly frustrated with people enjoying things he doesn't understand.
Now, what's Nintendo, you ask, and why should you care? Well, I think it's something you should know about, because it's captured America's children. School bus drivers report the kids are talking less about clothes and sports and what Joe did to Jane, and more about...
When you get to those things that go up and down, you just jump on them.
After school, even on the day that brings the first beautiful snowfall of the season. Everyone's eager to get inside the house so they can rush to get to the television set.
And I want to preface this by saying John Stossel is a wretched human being. He's like an Andrew Ryan-style libertarian, and take from that what you will. I apologize if you're a libertarian,
well,
but
I mean,
he's very extreme. He's extremely extreme, and this is just the expression of his natural crankiness. Right. I just wanted to bring that up. Not to get super political,
I just
but
think at the time we didn't really know that.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, either he was more secretive about it, or he only got super libertarian after he got hired by Fox Business.
Right. I mean, on 2020, it just became his character to sort of do that sort of, curmudgeonly sort of.
Can you believe this?
Right. Yeah, I believe his original role was like as a consumer advocate, though.
Yeah.
We're going to look into these scams or whatever. I think
Mike Wallace meets Ralph Nader.
You need throw someone evil in there.
Well, okay, Ralph Nader's kind of evil.
Basically,
he gave us seatbelts.
He was like Andy Rooney if he went outside.
That's right. That's right. And grew
that's what I was saying. Not Mike Wallace, Andy Rooney.
And grew a sweet mustache.
Yeah.
But
you ever wondered why kids these days play video games?
When I was at my
what the heck is happening? Wow. Sorry, Henry, go ahead.
When I was at the height of my top of TGIF watching, sometimes I would stay up and watch 2020 after TGIF just to see what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
And that's how I was introduced to John Stossel.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm going to play a clip of this afterwards, but I hear sincere anger in his voice when he's describing the plot of Mario Brothers. He's like, you're 2 plumbers in the Mushroom Kingdom, and you got to rescue a princess? Okay, whatever. Like, he's just so dismissive of the whole thing. Like, the entire segment is just him just like, why do you like this? I don't get it. But that's John Stossel for you.
Even more popular are the adventure games like Super Mario. They tend to have ludicrous plots. Mario is an Italian plumber who, under your control, enters the Mushroom Kingdom to fight off killer turtles and deadly ducks until he can rescue the Princess Toadstool. The kids love it.
You're a mouse that wants to become a sorcerer, and you cause brooms to make water appear.
Okay.
This is so stupid.
Okay, Walt. Good luck with that. So again.
So,
go ahead, Ray.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Oh, don't worry
I mean,
about
like the whole crux of that segment was sort of around the fervor of 1988 when Mario 2 and Zelda 2 were
Oh,
coming out,
yeah.
and there were shortages.
Yes.
The chip
And
shortage.
So, yeah.
And John Stossel kind of blew the lid off of that because he went to the Nintendo of Japan and he saw the cartridges. They did exist in great quantity. He pointed that out in this segment.
Right.
He's like, chip shortage.
Yeah.
But it was such a minor point of this segment that I don't know why it wasn't a bigger thing.
That's what frustrated me most in that segment because, like, they went to Japan. They filmed stuff there. They were at their Japanese place. Like, what I wanted to see more of was footage of that.
Yeah.
Well, they were probably at the plant as opposed to...
Yeah. But they also had they had footage of the Dragon Quest III sale craziness that happened.
Yeah, I think all that was just other
maybe that was
network footage. Yeah, right.
And I believe that was the biggest Dragon Quest release to date.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's the one that
that was the one that made that non-law.
Yeah,
Right.
like
It made them say, okay, let's just release games on weekends so you don't have to pass a law on the diet about it.
Right,
But it was a very interesting parallel because it was the same year. It was
That's right,
another
88.
kind of Nintendo fervor on both sides of the world like that. So
Yeah.
it made an interesting sort of contrast.
And I mean, our last episode was about video game violence, right? What I found interesting about this, as much as I don't like John Stossel, I'm sorry to keep going on about that, but he was not even worried about violence at all. He was he kind of dismissed the idea that violence would affect the kids. He was more worried about kids getting too into games, and it was like
turning into zombies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look how focused these children are, as if that's a bad thing. Like, children focusing their attention on something is evil or awful. But I guess if it's a video game, there's some idea of a rotting brain of some sort happening behind the child's eyeballs.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I thought that was weirdly progressive, but I guess, like we said, the '80s were not as big about video game violence.
I think also Stossel recently on his Fox show was sort of taking like a that sort of critical stance for video game violence. I mean, not for it, but that whole like, what's the big deal? Sort of
Right,
thing.
right. I mean, if anything, he's based on his political beliefs, he's an advocate of free speech, and he does want to protect that. Oh, sorry, Henry.
No, yeah, I saw that clip too, where he basically just dug up a sad old man who was just saying the same things everyone always says about video game violence against it.
Yeah.
And Stossel ended up being the defender of video games in that one, including bring up like, well, in Japan they buy tons of video games and they don't kill anybody, which is not true, but definitely violence is less. They didn't get into guns and all that because I don't think that's what Fox wants to talk about.
Oh God, no.
But yeah, it was strange to see Stossel again defending video games.
Yeah.
In that case.
And something else I noticed about this segment is that there are hints that maybe possibly an adult could enjoy this thing.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Let's not go too far.
Even Barbara Walters is incredulous, and she calls it watching a video game, and he corrects her. He's like, no, playing a video game, Barbara.
Yeah.
In the postscript, he admits he's played it himself. He's like, they gave me one, and I played it. I shot those ducks. It was something like...
John, what's your feeling after watching this? Does it make them, brain dead, as you said? Or isn't there a certain amount of imagination that you have to use for this game?
I think that's true, that it's not just like watching television. You have to use imagination. There are all these ways to handle the games. I think under the right time limits, it's fine. In fact, I got one while doing the story, and I'm going to keep it.
For you, or would you give it to your child?
Well, my 3-year-old likes kill ducks, and my wife and I stayed up till midnight playing it.
And you don't mind the so-called violence in it? Kill ducks, kill ducks?
They're animated characters, and I just think you have to pay attention and limit the time, and it's fine.
Now I know how you're spending the holidays, watching
right.
Nintendo.
Playing Nintendo.
Playing Nintendo. Thank you, John. Now on to a much more serious report.
Yeah. I also did like that I like that the collection of kids he got to play the games with, like, it was boys and girls.
It was, yeah.
I just want to say, there's footage of like girls talking about Nintendo games on the bus. I never experienced that. I don't know where exactly that was.
I don't think I ever saw. I can't remember seeing that either. But
yeah.
It was a nice sampling, at least, like to show that girls were interested in Nintendo too. They weren't just selling it as a boys thing.
And the kids came off as incredibly savvy and even like smarter than he is, because he's coming to this from a point of ignorance, and they're like explaining to him in detail, like, here's what you do in these games, and he's just like, oh, whatever, But I guess that's why he was there, to learn about them, even though
that's very true to life anyway.
Yeah.
I love the little kid with the one with the glasses. Like, you're old. You don't know what this is. This is for us.
Yeah.
Take that. Man, I bet he cursed that kid out when the cameras shut
How
off.
dare you?
There's a really great shot about when he begins talking about, the effects this could have on children. It's like of a mom who's watching the kids play Nintendo, and she's watching as if they're playing with like dangerous animals.
Right. Yes.
And I was like, that mom is such a. I'm glad my mom wasn't like that. I was going to ask you guys, like, part of growing up, did you know parents that like forbid video games? Because I always felt so bad for those kids that couldn't like. You can't be like. I had parents. Well, I mean, I didn't have parents, but I knew parents who thought like Nintendo games. Well, I had parents, but other parents thought video games were too violent for children. This was like in the NES days, and I always felt really bad for those kids and would invite them over to play my Nintendo. But did you guys experience that at all? Like weirdly anti-Nintendo families where it was always a buzzkill when you went over there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Like really Flanders-y style?
Yeah. I had a friend, and they really limited their Nintendo time. And, they were also Christians, so they made sure to buy all the Wisdom Tree games as well.
Oh, God.
It was like all that, and then just like Mega Man 4, which they would rent, I suppose. And yeah.
Mega Man is doing God's work.
But basically it was like an hour a day sort of situation.
I don't know, Jeremy, Henry, any?
Yeah, I knew one or two kids kind of like that, but I don't know, I never hung out with them because... Who'd want to hang out with a kid whose parents won't let them play video games?
Yeah.
Yeah, my family was totally cool with it, and also like my cousins too. They lived in a more rural area, but they are actually like even hardcore game. At least on the NES era, they were even more hardcore into it than we were. And like there were actually nights where we would watch. There were at least two times where at a family get together at my aunt and uncle's place, we watched my cousin Justin play Kid Nicky. Just like
wow,
and we were all just like, he can get so far.
You're gonna
Kid
beat
Nicky.
Death Breath this time.
It's amazing.
That's like the equivalent of seeing those photos of people gather around a radio, just like looking at the radio, like, oh man, Kid Nicky, can things
like
get
the
better?
Back of the Nintendo box.
Ooh,
yeah. Like my nephews and cousins were all into games, and we would enjoy them. Quite often.
God bless permissive parenting.
Right. Yeah. I did know one kid who his parents they bought an NES and then they got Tetris, and they told him like, all right, this is the gameplay time, now it's bedtime. And then after a week, one night when the parents like woke up to get a glass of water or whatever, and just saw that the kid every night had been sneaking out of his room and staying up all night playing Tetris.
Man.
And then they took it away, and for the next 5 years of his life, it was no video games in the house.
Jeez. That's severe. That's like video game death row or something.
No kidding. Solitary.
So we're finished with John Stossel. Our final clip is much shorter. It's called Video Mania, and it is basically an announcement of what's sort of like a reaction to the Super Nintendo, because I guess apparently at the time, and I don't blame these people for thinking this, that like a new video game system, what's wrong with the old one? And you can't play your old tapes? What? This is a ripoff.
Yeah.
And I think this piece is slightly, in real terms, biased in the actual real use of the word, because there are like some statements about like, okay, who's gonna be buying this, who won't, and one of them is like, some parents won't be taken in. It's just like implying that yes, this is a scam, this is like some sort of trick, and Nintendo's ripping you off because this thing plays new games. But again, with this clip, we see Nintendo is still a toy, and by the way, this is 91. And like out of nowhere, they're like, oh yeah, and expect more Nintendo counseling sessions happening in your neighborhood, as if like Nintendo Anonymous was a thing.
That
was
just
the
like, craziest part of that clip.
I assume that happened once.
Yeah.
And they were sort of extrapolating, like, of course this is a national phenomenon.
And it was
like,
probably just like a church group or something.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll pull out the dialogue, but there's like a really weird bit of dialogue you hear from this. It's like, we don't want to should we blame the publishers for making the thing so expensive, or your parents? It's just like, what are they even talking about?
Yeah, there's also a mom there who says like, I'm not getting it for my son, and I'm going to teach him instead that, look, people use these things to try and sell things to you, and that's not
she's
good.
anti-capitalist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
She can't stand it. It was neat. It was interesting to see all these parents for the first time be introduced to the idea of a hardware generation shift. And also the Genesis gets barely any lip service.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. I mean, they just recognize it exists.
But, I remember them like, some people like the pictures on this system better. They call it pictures. It's very quaint.
Well, you have to keep in mind that Sega was kind of a non-starter in the console race at that point.
Yeah, they probably if Sonic was out when they did that that news report, like he hadn't become anything. Yeah, people weren't aware of him.
I have a conspiracy theory about that. I feel like a Nintendo competitor was mentioned because Nintendo didn't assist them with the production of the segment. I think, come on, people.
That makes sense.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if that was
Makes
crazy
a
or
certain
not.
amount of sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could. Well, because we didn't mention that before, but in the previous two clips, they both went on similar tours. It almost was like Nintendo said, "A major news media here, bring him through the tour, show him the call center. We'll talk to this guy.
Yeah. Give that Stossel guy an NES.
Yeah,
Keep
but
him happy.
well, meanwhile, on this one, it was mostly negative towards Nintendo. They're ripping us off.
Yeah.
They're destroying Middle America. There was also an interesting thing to me. I wonder where they got the footage, if they imported it or something. But they had Super Famicom Mario World footage in there. Like
You're right, yeah.
There was the title screen for it with Super Mario Brothers 4 on top of it, and they even show the end of the game.
Probably stock footage from CES.
But they showed the end of the game. They showed him beating Bowser.
You're right. Man, what a
nuts.
Spoilers! Come on.
They spoiled the launch game.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. Like that's such a a recognizable image to me. I never thought it could be surprised. Yeah,
who cares? It's just a toy, right?
Yeah, weird.
It's
so
Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah.
20 years later, do you think Nintendo needs another segment like this? Like, it's the Wii U. Here's how it works. Even if it is negative, I don't know. I'm just being snotty.
Probably.
I don't know the paranoia in this clip, the suspicion and unhappiness sounds
Japanese
less like,
company, eh?
No, I mean it sounds less like people's opinion of Wii U and more like Xbox One, PS4. It won't play the old games.
Yeah.
What are these shenanigans?
Right. Yeah, and I've written about that before. Like everybody kind of expected it to be backwards compatible, and because it wasn't, then you get more grumbling from the parents and.
Right, and was that part of the original plan for
was.
Super Famicom backwards compatibility?
Yeah.
But they shaved off a few bucks by not doing that.
It's the Nintendo way.
Well, I think Nintendo, like at least in the Wii era, like they had the Al Rokers of the world introduce the Wii to people. Like
that's right.
Mainstream media really helped the Wii out in its early days a lot, I'd say, and like they
don't forget Ellen and her cart full of Wiis coming in from backstage.
Yeah, exactly. They got all that kind of stuff, and I think now mainstream media has deserted them because all they said about the Wii U was like the best they got out of mainstream media was them saying, "I think it's an upgrade you buy for your Wii. You buy this tablet."
Well, I mean that's kind of indicative of the nature of the system. The Wii was a system that Al Rokers of the world could play and understand. Like they got Wii bowling or Wii, tennis or whatever. Whereas the Wii U gamepad is not as intuitive as the motion control, and that's the obstacle Nintendo is dealing with right now.
Yeah.
And none of the games are as immediate as like this is tennis,
right.
So
Nintendo Land was
moving your
fun
hand
for fans, but it was no Wii Sports.
Yeah.
The gamepad is big and it has all those buttons again. Look at all these buttons. Yeah, that sort of mentality.
Yeah, it's strange. So, what can anything else we can say about these clips? I find them hilarious because it's just the patronizing attitude, like these kids and the thing they're into now, it'll be Turtles next or whatever, just like not treating this as a viable like form of media, just like another fad, and also the idea that it's only for kids. Maybe there are a few hints elsewhere, only in the Stossel thing, but it's just like, no, this is a thing that kids like. And I had the opposite experience. Like Nintendo was the last time my family played video games together. As a family, like my mom played Nintendo, my stepdad still plays video games, but he doesn't play Nintendo, but it was something the entire family enjoyed, and it's weird that was never a real focus. It was always like parents versus children, and the children had their interests and the parents were opposed, and here are the reasons why.
It just kept going too.
Yeah.
The whole sentiment up until now, even still, it's like we were talking about violence in games and how that was discussed as being harmful to children, and we still kind of talk as though games are made for children. I mean, not us,
and
but the media, the TV media does.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be ending.
That's true. I'm very sad now. Jeremy, Henry, any thoughts on these clips?
Obviously, what we need now are more of those articles that are like, biff, pow, video games aren't just for kids anymore.
Yes.
Right. Get the message across.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that too.
I feel like in the 24-hour news media cycle, like they at least accept video games make enough money for them to begrudgingly accept that it is a business and it or like a business art form that isn't going to go away and it's not a fad. But beyond that, like they're not going to. It will never get the respect Like, I don't want to say never.
Maybe not within our lifetimes.
Yeah, you need the John Stossels of the world to die.
When the next form of media comes along, then video games will become part of the establishment.
And
The question is, what will that next video game or that next media format
Interactive
be?
sex holograms.
Yes.
Wait, that is a video
That's
game.
pretty much a video game.
Damn it.
And then the people in charge of
Oculus
video,
Rift, my friend.
Then the video game people can then crap on the new art form and say, "Oh, that is destroying children."
Yep.
I've got a better idea. Let's all pick on Google Glass.
Yeah.
But
That
everyone
does creep
already
me out.
does.
Yeah.
I meant
you're not coming up with a new idea.
I meant like literally pick on the people wearing them.
Oh, okay.
Like, noogies, anything sub actual assault, Yeah,
That's great. After decades of lamenting how horrible people are because we're bullied, let's become bullies and just...
Hey, if you can afford Google Glass, you can afford to be bullied. And that's my statement for today.
All right.
I forget which clip it came from, but there are the words Japanese toy maker Nintendo, and I mean that was, like we said, that was a big thread throughout all that, and well, now they don't call them a toy maker, at least.
Nope, we've made some progress there. Well, that was a fun episode. Let's wrap up here. You can find us at Retronauts on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, and Twitch.tv. Be sure to go to our blog, Retronauts.com. You can find all the videos we talked about, along with other notes, announcements, and basically you just need to go to Retronauts.com, guys. That's where you can find everything you need to find associated with us. And as always, please keep the reviews coming in. They help the show. We've been kicking butt on the review charts on iTunes, so if you haven't submitted a review, please do. It really helps, and you guys have been doing awesome, so thank you so much if you've submitted a review. Let's do contact info. I am Bob Servo on Twitter. Henry, where can we find you?
I'm HENEREYG on Twitter. I have to spell it out because otherwise I say Henry, and it's not as clear. I write for GamesRadar.com. We have a podcast, Radio Radar. I also am on the Laser Time Podcast Network, so look for me in all those places. Also, it was really cool being on Retronauts. Just want to say.
Oh yeah, we're glad to have you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
I hope we get more Laser Time guys too.
We will do that. Ray.
I'm RDBAAA on Twitter, and I have a magazine, Scroll, called at scroll.vg.
Yes.
And I'm GameSpite on Twitter. During the day, I teach high school science at usgamer.net, and at night, I make meth on telebunny.net.
Ooh, that's very timely. We will catch you guys next week, and hopefully Jeremy will not have exploded a man's head. Goodbye.
All this is beyond me. I had trouble with Lincoln Logs. Remember Lincoln Logs? I mean, that was it for me. Kids and fantasy. And while we're on the subject of fantasy, our weekly feature, the top 5 tabloid headlines of the week, is next, and you don't want to miss this.
So, this week in Retronauts, it's summer, even here in wintry Seattle. And this is where Bob would hum the theme.
I said the new theme is way too fast for me to hum, so...
Okay, fair enough.
The old theme feels more like a dirge in retrospect.
How fitting. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out here to our first ever standalone Retronauts panel at Seattle Retro Game Expo. And I'm the host of this panel, Jeremy Parrish, and the other hosts are with me here in front of you.
Hi, I'm Bob Mackey, and I'm a little too loud, it sounds like. How's it going? Also, some of you paid for us to be here, so the pressure's on.
Yeah. And I'm Ray Barnholt, and this is my first live Retronauts, and also I'm from Washington, so it's great to be here in Seattle. So it's a nice occasion. So yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
No place rocks like Seattle.
It's kind of turned into one of those.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is our first ever Kickstarter-funded public appearance, and those of you who supported us and made it possible for us to be here, thank you very much. And we hope that this lives up to your expectations. Hopefully your expectations aren't incredibly high, so it's easier to do that. So for this panel, instead of doing something really hard-hitting and super insightful, we thought we'd just kind of take it easy. It is the summer months, so we decided to dwell on summer nostalgia and talk about memories of summer video gaming, not only for ourselves, but we'd also like to open up the floor to you guys later and let you share your memories and chime in if you're interested in doing that.
This was not my idea, by the way. This is not tied into my magazine, Scroll Issue 10 Summer Now.
Well, now you put the idea in all of their heads, Ray.
ScrollVG.com?
No.
No, not .com, sorry.
.vg.
.vg.
Thank you.
Anyway, guys, should we start with doing the usual lamentations about Virtual Console? Because it just wouldn't be Retronauts without those.
I think we should.
Okay. So, Virtual Console this past week. How about it, huh? It was one of those weeks where Nintendo managed to put out a lot of really great games that they wouldn't have been able to do if they gave you things like cross-purchase on multiple platforms. But since they keep everything nice and separate, they managed to sell us another copy of Super Mario Brothers 2, even though they just offered one a couple of months ago. Good job, guys.
Yeah. Hey,
So,
it's
that
a
was nice of
classic.
them.
So what were the titles this week?
There was Donkey Kong for the NES and also Metroid for the NES. So if by some chance you've never played these games in the multiple chances you've had, then you're in luck.
Yeah, and actually the Donkey Kong is worth mentioning because it's actually coming out tomorrow as part of the 30 games for 30 cents for the 30th anniversary of Famicom thing. And technically right now it is July 15th in Japan, which means that it is technically the 30th anniversary of the Nintendo Famicom. So that's kind of cool. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about... Way to go, way to serve... Oops. Wow.
That had to happen. Party foul. Party foul.
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll be talking about some NES games over the course of this hour. But if you haven't heard it already, our first episode of the new Retronauts Volume 3 actually talked about the Famicom's 30th anniversary as well as the 30th anniversary of its simultaneous competitor, Sega's SG-1000, which eventually mutated into the Master System. So you've probably played some variant of the games that came out for that.
Now, I know in 1983 no one really knew what they were doing, but when do consoles normally launch in Japan? It seems like it's not in the window that we always have, Thanksgiving shopping season.
Yeah.
Well, it has been most recently.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's all been like global launches, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the difference in the way the launches happened for those systems versus the way they happen now shows a lot about how the industry is kind of solidified and matured. I have no idea why both Nintendo and Sega independently decided July 15th would be the day to launch their new systems. I don't know if it's a summer vacation thing or what, but the Famicom eventually became the US, but it didn't launch in America for like 2.5 years after that. I can't even imagine a console having a 2.5-year gulf between launching in one region and another. Although maybe Xbox One will kind of do the progressive rollout thing and eventually make it to Japan a few years later. It's been kind of a little weird on that front.
Did they have to wait for Rob to be ready,
Japan's buyers are kind of like America's buyers were in 1983, right. And that they don't really want anything to do with the Xbox, I think.
You see, if Rob had launched in the 90s, it could have taken advantage of the Pog craze, and Rob could be stacking Pogs for you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure
that's what a buddy does, right? He organizes your Pogs.
Yeah, you can do that already. Yeah. And of course, the Xbox One already has its own Rob that stares at you forever.
One unblinking robot eye connected right to the government.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess that's probably all the banter we're going to do about that topic.
Yeah, unfortunately not even an exciting Virtual Console week to complain about, really. Because the games are just like, oh man,
they're good.
How else are we going to complain about these?
But why doesn't Nintendo give us the Pie Factory as DLC for Donkey Kong?
Yeah. Well,
who has played the Pie
You have to
Factory?
go through special channels.
It is a cement factory,
Oh, it's a cement factory?
Those are piles of cement.
Those are awful pies.
Yeah, I'm assuming that the game that's coming out tomorrow is not the special edition that they released for 3DS last year. It's probably just the same old NES ROM that we played and is lacking that kind of crappy, lackluster level that they dropped for no particular reason.
Right.
Yeah. No
It's
doubt.
more fun than math, though, with Donkey Kong. I find that funny that they got an ape to teach you math and they got Popeye to teach you English.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right. Yeah.
That
How do you
work
spell
out.
like?
I would need like the katakana in front of me.
All right. So anyway, summer. Like I said, it's summer out there, and summer's kind of a lazy time, so we're just going to kind of stroll down memory lane talking about old video game memories. And we hope you guys will jump in a little later and talk about your own personal memories. So that I'm not putting everyone to sleep with my sleepy voice, why don't we start from Bob's end of the table and
I guess
share
I
with
need
Bob,
to.
what is your most beloved summer video gaming memory?
Well, I'll bring up a certain phrase, and you guys in the audience can let me know if this sounds familiar. The summer of adventure. Anybody? Nothing? Nobody? Okay. Well, this was a promotional campaign by Square back when they actually made games. And this happened in the year 2000, and what happened in that year was they were very prolific because they still had money. So every month from basically April to September, there was a new game. But 3 big RPGs came out in the year 2000, Legend of Mana, Threads of Fate, and Chrono Cross. And I want to count Vagrant Story because that came out in May. It wasn't part of their campaign, but it should have been, so I'm grandfathering it in.
Didn't Saga Frontier and Front Mission 3 also come out that year?
I
Not as
looked
part
it
of
up
the campaign?
today, and those were winter, so that was more like the winter of adventure. So, but yeah, the summer adventure. The phrase is kind of misleading because releasing 3 RPGs in the summers, it's more like the summer for shut-ins because you're not leaving your room,
Right.
Because RPGs were really big back then. But if you pre-ordered all of these, you got a sample soundtrack, which was not great, but it was like, here's 5 songs. And back then, in the days of Napster and whatnot, that was sort of interesting, you know. And also, I just found this out today, that if you pre-ordered them all at GameStop or Babbage's or Software, et cetera, whatever the multi-tentacled family of game stores that existed back then, you got a free knapsack that probably would have disintegrated within minutes, but it was still there. So.
It's for your adventure.
Yes. So you can stay hydrated.